Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience podcast. Today I have with me Cam F. Awesome, aka the Motivational Comic. He's a former Olympic heavyweight, multi-time national champion boxer with over 400 wins under his belt. He rose to fame after being featured in the Netflix documentary Counterpunch, which chronicled his Olympic journey. Today, Cam uses his wit, humor, and life experiences to inspire and entertain audiences around the country as a motivational speaker and comic. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure. So obviously that goes a little bit into your journey, some of the stuff you've done in your life, but what's kind of been your journey to now, the in between?
So I guess growing up, the thing I valued more than anything, and it's the reason why I feared being in timeout. Even as a kid, I hated being in timeout because I valued time, and I'm not able to articulate that until now as I'm older. But I've always valued time, and I realize adults spend most of their time working, and all adults, like everyone I know with a job growing up when I was like 8 or 9, was broke. Like everybody I knew, everybody had a job, but they were broke. No one's balling. And the only person who's more broke than a person with a job is someone with 2 jobs. So I figured if I was going to spend most of my time working, I wanted to do something I loved. And my favorite show growing up as a kid was All That. Do you remember Nickelodeon? They had this like orange couch, and I've always wanted to sit on that couch when I was a kid. And I didn't know how I was going to get on TV. And my idea, what I want to do for a living is I just want to be on TV and be a performer. And I didn't know how to do that. And when I was 14 years old, I figured out this equation that unlocked everything for me. I was trying to lose weight, and because I was insecure about myself, and I tried out for every team. I couldn't make a team because I wasn't athletic. And I figured I was in class one day, and they explained how calories work. So basically, a person burns like 2,000 calories a day, and if you consume 2,000 calories, you break even. And that's when the equation clicked in my head. So to lose weight, and I figured out the formula to lose weight. If you burn more calories than you consume, you will lose weight. Everything else is marketing. If you strip everything down, I know there's a lot of other stuff, but when you strip everything down of all the nonsense, it's this equation: 1 + 2 = 3. In this equation, I am 1. You should always be your own number 1. You should be your biggest fan. That's why I changed my last name to Awesome, because I believe in believing in yourself. No one's going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. Number 3 in this equation is what the goal is. 1 + 2 = 3. You plus 2 equals the goal. In this equation, what is 2? 2 is everything you need to do to get there. Now, you could accomplish 2. So in boxing, I figured out. So I figured out 1 + 2 = 3. So I started to go to the boxing gym because you didn't have to make a team. So I just got to work out. And no one coached me, but I figured out this equation: 1 + 2 = 3. Me, number 1, and 3 is winning. Well, if I don't get hit, I win, right? 1 + 2 = 3. Roman, it sounds so basic, but I believed in this equation so much that within 2 months of me ever getting in the ring and sparring, I knew I was going to be the best boxer in the country. Of course, like no one else believed me because I had a very awkward style, and I taught myself how to box. It's not very conventional. It looks goofy. People laugh at it, but I don't get hit. 1 + 2 = 3. So my goal was, I figured out I unlocked something with boxing. I don't like boxing, by the way. I don't watch it. I'm not a fan of it, but I figured out how to win. And within 2 years of boxing, I qualified for the 2008 Olympic trials. And so it's like my formula worked. And it was surprising to everybody how a guy who's never boxed before was beating everyone easily. And I'm 6'2", and I'm fighting super heavyweights. So I'm fighting guys like 260, 270, and I'm beating them. Why? Because I just run from them until they get tired. and then I hit them. That simple. 1 + 2 = 3. So my thought process was I'm going to win the Olympics, and then I'm going to get on TV and do these funny interviews, and then I'm going to get my own TV show. That was the goal. So my mind, 1 + 2 = 3. So now the bigger equation is me getting to the Olympics equals getting a TV show. So number 2 in this equation was I just had to go to the Olympics. So 2008, I qualified for the Olympic trials, but I lost. I kept boxing. I won nationals in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. I was basically winning nationals every year pretty easily. Everyone just assumed I was going to win, and no one liked it because I have a very awkward way of fighting. Then I won the 2012 Olympic trials. Everything is going as planned with this equation. And to just kind of show where I was mentally, when I won my first national championship in 2008, they make you fill out this interview. So like you write your height, your weight, like your reach, hometown, southpaw, whatever. And the last question was, what do you want out of boxing? And most people put heavyweight champion, millions of dollars, Olympic gold medal. I put to be a good role model and have my own TV show. That's where my mind was. So now fast forward 2012, I'm heading to the Olympics. I leave the country to fight in Azerbaijan to qualify for the World Games. And I forgot to tell the drug testing agency I was leaving the country. And they showed up to my home to give me a random drug test. I wasn't there. A missed drug test is a positive drug test. I was suspended for a positive drug test and kicked off the Olympic team in 2012. That was a rough time for me because in my head, this wasn't a part of the equation. Now, another thing about the equation I have to share, 1 + 2 = 3. That 2, the reason why I call it number 2, because it is what it sounds. It's a shitty part of the job. It's the part that you don't want to do. And you can do it while you're hungry. You can do it while you're sad. You can do it while you're happy. You can do it while you're hangry. As long as you get it done. So your emotions don't matter when it comes to this equation. Now, I do believe in mental health and all that, but feeling sorry for yourself or disappointed, nah. You just got to keep going. That's how the equation doesn't work. 1 + 2 = 3. So after my year suspension, I started drinking for the first time. I gained a bunch of weight. I got up to 277. And because I lost everything I'd had. I put everything into boxing. I want to tell you, like I stopped going to school. I did nothing. I obsessed over boxing. Because here's something else I figured out along the way. Roman, name one person that has accomplished anything great that you can think of who's like the best, who practiced moderation.
Yeah, nobody.
Moderation
Honestly.
leads to mediocrity. And all you have to do is just give more effort. Now, here's the theory I'm playing with. Roman, I don't think there's a difference between stupidity and laziness. If you do something wrong because you're stupid, or you do something wrong because you're lazy, you still did it wrong, right? So if stupidity and laziness go hand in hand, then with enough effort and discipline, you can be a genius. In whichever realm you want to be in, if you put enough time and effort into something, you become a genius. Now, that was my approach with boxing. As somebody who was very unathletic and didn't understand, like, I don't lift weights or anything like that. I didn't physically look like a boxer, but I figured out how to win. But I had lost all that momentum in 2012 because, I had all of this. I lost everything, and I was embarrassed because the ESPN article that came out said, I failed to meet drug test requirements, which, of course, that means I failed the drug test. So everyone's looking at me like I pissed dirty, or like I was doing, like there was something in my system. And the same week that they went to test me, I was in Azerbaijan where I had to get drug tested to even fight in that tournament. And what's weird was they went to the wrong address. Well, I never updated my address because I came back to the United States and I continued fighting and winning tournaments. while I was suspended. I never went home to check my mail because I didn't live there anymore. So during that year suspension, I gained a lot of weight, started drinking, and was going into a spiral, and lost a bet. And because I was doing personal training. So imagine this. 1 week, I'm going to the Olympics. I'm training to go to the Olympics. I'm on like ESPN articles. I'm doing all this type of stuff. And then the next week, I'm putting ads on Craigslist to find people to do personal training for because I need to pay my bills. All my sponsorships, everything is gone. And the only client that I had was some guy reached out. He was 45 years old and wanted to have his first boxing match. And I'm like, a week ago, I thought I was going to the Olympics, and here it is. I'm coaching a guy, and he shows up. He's 45 years old. He's overweight, and he has a knee brace on. So he can't even get in the ring with his knee brace. And I was like, oh, this is rock bottom. But I was training him, and he was vegan, and I ended up losing a bet to him. It was Manny Pacquiao versus Timothy Bradley, and I bet on Pacquiao, and I lost, and I had to be vegan for 28 days. And the diet also entails sobriety, which meant for 28 days I couldn't drink, which meant for 28 days I had to deal with my problems without the aid of alcohol, which was a rough 28 days, mixed with the fact that I had to just eat vegan for a while, and that wasn't appetizing for me at all. But after 22 days, your taste buds adjust. And this is what I'm learning about the human body, how quickly we can adapt. It takes 22 days for your taste buds to adjust. So after 22 days, this food started to taste good. And I started to crave it. And I realized what you eat is what you crave. And it takes 22 days to break at least your taste bud habit. And day 27, I started to feel good. I was losing weight. I lost 32 pounds in this 28 days doing this plant-based challenge. And because I felt so good, I said I wasn't going to be vegan, but I was going to do it just for a little bit longer, just because I started to look good. And it made me more of a positive person because I was sober. And I realized I wanted to return to boxing. So I decided I was going to return to boxing because I had nothing else. I had no other options. I put all my eggs into this basket. But I said, if I return to boxing, I'm going to come back and be bigger than amateur boxing. I felt like boxing had taken everything from me, and I got nothing left in return in 2012. But I said when I returned to boxing, I was going to come in a different way, and I was going to have a different approach at an entire career, not just boxing. And the first thing I decided to do was I legally changed my last name to Awesome. I did it for a few reasons. One, because it's cool. Two, it was $178. Three, it's hard to be grumpy when your last name is Awesome. Four, every interaction I have somebody, I check into a hotel, your name's Awesome. That's awesome. We have a great conversation. It's a great icebreaker. There isn't a bad reason why my last name is Awesome. But I did it because I did it for the same reason why I believe some people get face tattoos. So when you get a face tattoo, you do it knowing, well, I'm not going to live a normal life anymore. I'm committed to whatever I'm doing now. And when I changed my last name to Awesome, I threw a party, and I did it on my half birthday. So now I celebrate both. February 16th, Cam F. Awesome was born, and August 16th, we mourn the death of Lenroy Cameron Thompson. But I returned to boxing. I won nationals. I retained my spot as the number one heavyweight in the country. And then Netflix wanted to do a documentary on it and follow me around, which was a really cool experience. I'm so glad that I did it. Not sure I would do it again. It's very invasive, and I'm kind of a personal person. But Netflix followed me around. I won nationals in 2013, 14, 15. And then 2016, I won the Olympic trials again. Netflix follows me around for all of that. Now I'm back where I left off in 2012. Exact same position, just 4 years older, a lot more experience. But in these past 4 years, not only was I boxing, I knew I needed a way out after boxing. because in 2012 I had nothing. So I needed to put myself in a position that when I'm done with boxing, I have a life that's easy. Because this all started because I value time. I wanted to do what I want with my own time, which was perform. So when I would go around, like, let's say I fought in Dallas, I'd reach out to schools in Dallas and speak at schools for free. And I would take time out of my day to do that and no one understood why I was doing it at the time, because I was a terrible speaker. And I'm like, oh, after I do 200 of these, I'm going to be dope. And I was also doing stand-up comedy, because in 2012, when you're sad, I guess people do stand-up comedy. And I started performing, and I realized, like, I started performing so I understand value. I have a great understanding of value, or at least how to leverage my value. Stand-up comics, I started to perform all over, because it doesn't matter how funny you are. It matters how many tickets you can sell. And because I had boxing and people support me in boxing, I was able to sell tickets in every city I went to. So I started to perform at all these places that I didn't really deserve to perform in, because I wasn't that funny yet. But I realized the most you ever make is like $40 in a bar tab, and I wasn't drinking. So I realized, oh, I can start practicing doing jokes at schools for students instead of going to open mics. And the students started to like the jokes, and I'm like, well, forget the speech. I'm just doing jokes for students. And I kind of merged motivational speaking into my stand-up comedy, because I wanted to perform. I've always wanted to perform. That was the goal. And back in the day, I said I wanted to be a good role model and have my own TV show. So I was getting closer to my goal, but I'm not making a living doing it. I'm still doing it for free all over the country, or making $40 for bar tabs. Now it's 2016, and I have to win in Argentina to qualify for the actual games, and I lose in the finals on a split decision. And I remember when I lost, the first thing that went in my mind was, all right, how are we going to spin this? Because I already have momentum. I have news they care. You have a small bit of time where people actually care about your problems. And like, I'm relevant to like news stations and sports stations, stuff like that. So as soon as I lost, I went to Twitter. I post, lost my fight today. My Olympic run is over. Time to reinvent myself and see what's next for me. It may not be boxing. I knew exactly what it was. It was going to be speaking. But if I were to tweet that me, the most decorated, like, I've won more national championships than any other boxer. I've won 4 Golden Glove Nationals, 6 USA Nationals, 3 National Pals, like 5 or 6 ringside championship. I've won a lot of championships. No one would understand why I wouldn't just turn pro to make millions of dollars, because this entire time I'm broke. So when you're boxing and you're on Team USA, you only make $12,000 a year. So like, let's do some math on that. Let's say $500 for rent. But let's just say $500 for rent. $200 for car insurance. Let's say $100 for your cell phone. $200 for food. Well, where are you going to get gas, supplements? You have a lot of things you need. So like, I struggled. So for the life of someone, I know they couldn't understand why I wouldn't just turn pro and make millions of dollars in boxing. But if I did that, I would be stuck doing that. And what I want to do is what I want to do with my time. It's never about money. I just want to do what I want to do with my time, and I just want to perform. So I formed Awesome Talks LLC, my speaking business I'm currently doing now. And I got in my Prius, and a year later I took off and I went on a 51-day speaking tour at high schools and middle schools. I was not making much. I was making enough to get me to the next location, but I realized I love stand-up comedy, and I understand how comics work. You have to perform like locally, and then you perform regionally, and the more stage time you get, the better you get. So if I want to get better, 1 + 2 = 3. I'm number 1. Number 3 is getting good at performing. Number 2 is performing, right? So I got in that Prius. I did a 51-day road trip. That was the plan. And I knew once I hit all these schools, it'd be great. And I was just making enough to get to the next school. And I remember I left, it was on April 1st. I left my house April 1st, 2017. And I was driving to Florida for a gig, and I made it 3 hours into it, and I totaled my Prius. And I didn't have enough money to like rent a car. So I had to I got someone to take me to a rental place, and I just rented a car for a day. Cause they let you rent it for a day. I only had a debit card. I lost big on that trip. But I continued, but the insurance money I got from totaling that Prius, I bought a van, and I lived in my van for 3 years and traveled around speaking at about 200 schools a year. Why? Because I realized I wanted to make a career out of speaking, and most people are worried about making money. I'll eventually make money. I want to be unfreaking deniable. So like when I get on a stage, I want, if you go to a conference and there are 5 speakers and you see 5 speakers that day, I don't want you to remember the other 4's name. I'm taking the same competitiveness I had in boxing to speaking, and I take speaking very seriously. So, I started to make a little bit of money started to build my business. I'm taking these online courses. People just give out courses for free with free information. That's the wildest thing. And I realized why. You can give all the information in the world. Most people don't have the discipline to follow through. We will read someone's book because we respect their opinion. We want their advice. We want to change our lives. And every time we get to an action step where they say, don't go any further, don't change this, don't turn the page until you do this action step. You're going to want to skip it, but don't skip it. We still skip it. It's like, I decided I didn't want to be that person. So now when I meet with someone, if one of my ideas to build where I'm going is when I meet with someone, I want to know everything they know. Like I meet people, I don't drink coffee. I meet with people for coffee all the time. Whether you're successful or not, tell me everything you did wrong. Unsuccessful people got some of the best advice in the world. I met a lot of them. And a lot of them are disguised as successful people. Like the people who've made it, like nice house, nice car. Those are the unsuccessful people I'm talking about. Like, those are the people who failed the most to get there. They have, and also the people who didn't make it. So my goal was to when I first started, my goal was to perform. And to do that was through boxing. And I built this career in boxing for myself. And I'm living in the van. Now it's 2019. And I realized the Olympics is coming up again. This would be realistically my last shot. Now, I've been going after this goal since I started boxing in 2005. 2008, I qualified for the Olympic trials. I lost 2012. I won the Olympic trials. I got suspended. 2016, I won the Olympic trials, lost in a split decision on the finals. Now it's 2020 coming up. I'm like, okay, let's go all in. If I'm literally going to school, speaking about resilience, speaking about never giving up, I got to be about that life, right? So I went to sign up for Team USA, and they wouldn't allow me because they said I would have to quit my business. They don't allow you to work. They want you to live at the training center with all the other athletes. And I can't live on $12,000 a year anymore. So I flew to Trinidad and Tobago, my dad's home country. And I got dual citizenship, won their Olympic trials, came back to the US, and I was speaking at schools, performing stand-up, emceeing vegan festivals because I'm still vegan, and training for the Olympics. And then the pandemic happened. So it killed that goal once again. And that since then I've shifted into going full-time into speaking. And I believe in the whole model of go hard or go home. I'm living in hotels. I've booked gigs, pretty much a gig every day until the end of March. So as right now, I'm in a hotel in Arizona. I'm speaking in Chandler in the morning. And I do have a vision for where it goes from here, but I feel like I've been rambling.
Yeah, and it's I think it's important to see that paths are not necessarily like what you define them as. Like you have a vision of success or your goal, but you may get to your goal in a more unconventional way that you had in your mind. So like really, like you said, that equation, like the number one is you, but that number two, yeah, it's that hard work, it's that stuff you may not want to do, but it may not even be like what you thought it would be. You know what I mean? So like I had a goal, like you said, time right now, time is the most important thing. You're never going to get back time. You can always make money, you can always get material things. Time, you can't. I was just actually thinking, I'm 38. I was just 18 a second ago. So people, like, there's a lot of motivational speakers out there, people out there. You have all the time to fail. I do agree. Like, you need to learn from your failures. And if you fail, it doesn't mean the end of the world, and everything in life is a lesson or a blessing. But like, you have to operate on urgency. And I kind of try to do that. And I try to do, like, somebody's coming for you, like the boxing analogy. Like, if you're number one, if you fall off or you become complacent, there's a million hungry people that are willing to take your spot. And there's always somebody out there willing to take that and willing to put in the work if you're not willing to do it. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't act. They're very talented. I've hired a lot of people. I worked with a lot of people. I've interacted with a lot of people in life where they have all the potential in the world, but don't act on it. That potential, if you don't do anything with it, like, what is it truly? And, you took something, you kind of went all in, like that kind of burn the ships approach, and you're going to get it done. And I mean, I value that, and like, putting in the time to actually like honing your craft of speaking and not necessarily getting paid for it. That's going to be more valuable in the future. You know what I mean? Because if you're just limiting yourself, well, you may have spoken at 200 places, but if you focus on the money, you may have only spoken at 10. What kind of value did you get in terms of speaking in, 200 things versus 10? So you have to really take everything as an opportunity, I think, and take advantage of, anything you're dealt in life. Take advantage and run with it to the fullest, because you never know where you're going to end up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And you can fail as many times as you want. It's just, so one of the big quotes in all of my talks is, if you can fail without being discouraged, success becomes inevitable. So like, my thought process is, I don't even care about failing. Like, I identify with failing. It's like, when you think about failures, I want you to think about me. I take pride in it. And it took a while to train myself to that point. But like, the idea of failing is like, failing's how you get better. Failing's how you get experience. For example, I've got 400 wins in boxing, but I've got 39 losses. 39 losses. Now, here's an example of what I've learned in those losses. I fought a dude named Roberto Camarelli. He came from Italy to the U.S. to fight me in Reno, Nevada. He was the number one boxer in the world. But if you think I'm going to let some dude come to my country and beat me in my hometown, nah. So I was super excited for that fight. And we got in the fight. We're in the middle of the ring, and I get hit twice, and I don't see his hands move. And I was like, oh no. And I lost that fight badly. Like, I lost. And the things that he treated me like a child, like, because he was just so much more experienced than me. And I learned there's levels to this. And the things he did to me in that fight, once I started fighting again domestically against people here in the US, it was like child's play. And I was only able to beat people in the US that easily. No one could beat me. I dominated here in the US. It was hard internationally, but I would learn from all my losses. So imagine how many different things I learned from all those 39 losses. But imagine how many times we lose and we're like, well, I'm discouraged now. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to actually use the tool I got from this loss.
Yeah, I mean, you learn more from like the loss than a win, because if you just keep winning, you may not even define like what that success is. Like, you don't know what caused that win. If you keep doing it over and over again, it may be, the right time, right place, right time, whatever variables. But like you said, like when you lose, you adapt. So you either, get better. You take something from it. Ideally, you take something from it and not harp on it. You separate the emotion from the, what I can actually take and implement, and then become that much better. I mean, in life and in business, you take that, or you figure out that, it may be time to pivot. Like for you, maybe then, like after that loss, you lost 15 times in a row, and it was just like, well, maybe it's time to move on to something else. But like, if you didn't experience that, you wouldn't have run into it. So it's kind of like that pool also can obviously impact that. So they say, I guess, if you put a shark, I don't know, some type of shark or whatever, in an aquarium, it'll only grow to like whatever, 8 inches a foot. If you have the same shark in the ocean, you know what I mean, where you have like bigger predators or whatever, it can be like 12, 16 feet or something crazy. So like, if you're never challenging yourself and putting, if you're not putting yourself in a place where like there's all these killers around you, regardless of what you're doing, to really prove and test yourself, and then, okay, there's this person beat me, cool, but like, what did I get out of it? This style, this technique, like, he finished a round this way, or like he took a lot of time, whatever you learn from it, and then you can adapt to situations. But it's really like also surrounding yourself with, I guess, I mean, in business or personally, people that are smarter than you, people from different, walks of life, people with different kind of knowledge sets, because you kind of take it and you really become a better person, regardless if it's professional or personal.
Here's, and I 100% agree with everything you're saying. And it's like, that's how you get to the next level. But a lot of us, we mentally limit ourselves. So just like the shark in the small tank, how do you remove that tank? So, and I don't know if this is true, but I saw a video, and it's a cool concept. So you put flies in the jar, and you put a lid on it, and you leave the lid there long enough. You remove the lid. They'll never go further than where that lid was. When they have offspring, their offspring will not go any further either. So we mentally limit ourselves. So what does that look like? So I've been playing with this concept, and I haven't completely ironed it out. So I want to be respectful to all and everyone's way of thinking. But I changed my last name to Awesome, and I think it's funny and it's cool, but a lot of people are turned off by it. Like, oh, well, this guy thinks highly of himself. And you'd be correct. I do. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. All right, Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So if that's true, why wouldn't I think I can do everything and anything? So when I changed my last name to Awesome, I made a decision. I made a decision not to be humble, because I believe words are powerful. Do you believe that? Do you believe words to be powerful?
Yep. I mean, and like you said, you should feel like you're the best at it. Why wouldn't you want to be the best at whatever, Yeah.
So the word humble, when you think about what the word humble means, and if we believe words are powerful, could you, if you have your phone on you, can you just look up the word humble?
Yeah, I'll do that.
So when this started to click for me was in 2012, when I was suspended. I was, for the first time ever, I was angry at myself, and I was beating myself up a lot, and I couldn't get myself to get back into the gym. I'd work out for a few days and fall off, then work out for a few days and fall off. And I realized, oh, I'm not kind to myself. So read me the first definition for humble.
This is actually super interesting, because I have not done this, and I didn't even know this was the actual first definition. Having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance. So it's basically devaluing yourself.
Devaluing yourself. You know what? Maybe that's a fluke. Read me the second definition.
Of low social, administrative, or political rank.
Oh. Now, that doesn't sound... Let's go for the third definition.
Of modest pretensions or dimensions.
Okay, that one was kind of lame. But...
I mean, it still demonstrates that it's being self-limiting, basically.
Now, once I realized... Now, I do respect everyone's religion and their background. And yes, you must be humble in the eye of the Lord. But last time I checked, none of y'all were the Lord. Why are we humble around each other? We're putting that that lid on ourselves. I was at a panel recently, and one of the guys next to me, they played music, and I was kind of bumping my head to it. And someone was like, "Oh, you like that song?" I was like, "That's kind of dope." And it's like, "Oh, that's him." I was like, "Bro, this is you." And he's like, "Oh, I do a little." I was like, "No, don't. I mean, say it proud." He's like, "Well, you got to be humble." And I was like, "Says who? You're promoting your music. Why is this ingrained into us? And if this is ingrained to us to that level, how much are we limiting ourselves?" Now, if there's no difference between laziness and stupidity, then if you give enough effort, you can become a genius, right? If that thinking is true, if you're a genius, you can accomplish anything, right? With enough effort. If you can fail without being discouraged, if you can do it enough times and embrace failing, if you and I had a decision to make, like a real hard decision, like a decision to figure out, I would have made the wrong decision 8 times before you made your first decision. And when I start my 9th, you're starting your first. Guess who has experience on their side? The more we sit around and wait to fail, the less experience we gain. I'm here for the experience, bro.
Yeah. I think that not everybody, almost everybody, like you would be probably the 1%, because everybody takes a different approach in terms of kind of like you said, like being self-limited. So taking the time and not valuing the time, and and you may not fail. You may do it 9 times and you may get it the first time. But like you said, like if you do certain alliterations, you're bound to end up to where you need to be. I mean, it's like if you play chess, or like a strategy game or whatever, like you learn patterns, you learn what the other person is doing, you learn as you go, because you keep losing. Like you said, you keep losing and you keep learning. I mean, that's kind of like what life is, but a lot of people just get stuck kind of in the monotony. And it's interesting, that fly example, because I think a lot of stuff is really generational. It's like your parents did this, and then they kind of put those limiting beliefs on you, like and your grandparents, and we were all just this, like this is like the kind of jobs and this is like the thought processes and like what we dream to be. I see it a lot, like in real life. I'm a foster parent, so my wife and I fostered 29 kids, and unfortunately, that like negative behavior, like the children that are now in foster care, their parents were in foster care, and then their grandparents were in foster care. So that kind of behavior and that kind of like, I can't change and get out of the rut and out of my situation and environment, it just keeps, perpetuating, and you kind of stay in this vicious cycle.
Yes. I figured a way to get out of that cycle. Which worked for me. And everything I say, by the way, it works for me. And if you find a variation that works for you, great. So I read Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's book. And basically, you think about money, you make money. I read it, and this was the first book I ever read that I said, I'm doing every single activity. This was the first book I ever decided. This is when I said, well, if I value his opinion enough. So I got my journals, I put the stickers, I did the Post-it notes. It was a little woo-woo, not really my thing, but I committed. It worked. It worked. And I figured, if I can do it with money, can I do it with happiness? So what I did was, every morning when I woke up, I wrote a list of 10 things I'm grateful for, just on a notepad before I look at my phone. Because our phone is filled with negative stuff. Every time I go on Twitter, hashtag RIP, someone I grew up loving. It's like people are dying every day now. Oh, people always died every day, but now we're just able to be made aware of it too quickly. So I always leave my phone on Do Not Disturb, and then I write a list of 10 things I'm grateful for. I don't repeat anything on this list. So the next morning, I write 10 other things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for my car. I'm grateful for my washer. I'm grateful for my dryer. Those are 2 different things. You can be grateful for everything. Now, if I'm being honest, after like week 3 of this exercise, it started to take me like 15, 20, 30 minutes to come up with 10 new things. And I really wanted to look at my phone when I woke up in the morning. So what I started to do as a cheat code is I would look for things to be grateful for throughout my day, stored in my memory, so I can call it delayed gratification and write my list faster the next day. Now, I went down a TikTok rabbit hole once and I found out about your RAS, your reticular activating system. Have you ever heard of this, Roman?
Yes, I've heard of the term.
So your brain takes in billions of information of every second, right? And if I'm looking directly at you and someone is standing about 10 feet next to you, I can see them in my peripheral. My brain doesn't look at their facial expressions. It doesn't recognize their facial expressions because they aren't relevant to me. Your brain can only process so much information, so it gives your unconscious mind gives your conscious mind just enough information. So what you seek is what you will find, and your RAS acts as a filter. So let's say you decide to buy a yellow car, you go yellow car shopping, and now you just start to see yellow cars everywhere.
Yep.
It's not that someone painted all the cars yellow. Those cars have always been there, but they haven't been relevant to you because your brain doesn't know about manners. It's not trying to be polite. It's efficient. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about who's not relevant, who's relevant. It's showing you what you think is important. It's a machine. Treat it as such. What's the information that you're putting into that machine? Because once I started to look for things to be grateful for all day consciously, guess what I started finding? And it's nothing to be grateful for that wasn't there yesterday. It's just that I'm able to uncover things to be grateful for. So when people get stuck into that rut, they're reminded every day, oh, this is what your parents weren't. This is what your parents, and they fall into that trap. But we have to kind of reset our brains, rewire the way we think. So I know a lot of people who suffer with anxiety, and they'll say, oh, okay, and they'll at the end of the night, like, all right, I'll call, have a good night. I'm going to go watch 3 hours of murder mysteries before bed. If you're watching the news and all you see is death and destruction, when you go out in your everyday life, what do you think you're going to find? Death and destruction. When I said earlier, when I started eating specific foods, those were the foods that I craved. Those are the foods that I found. Those are the foods that I liked. So what you put out is what you will also get back. How much time are we putting in the energy that we're putting out there? My journal now, because I've been doing it for over 2 years, I've been doing that for about 2 years now, and I never repeat a thing there. It takes me about 3 to 5 minutes every morning to write 10 things I'm grateful for. It's just a running tally of things going right in my life. How often do we stop to talk about the things that's not going right in our lives? Another layer to this journal is I don't add anyone's name to this list unless I reach out to them that day out of context and tell them that I love them. Here's why. Because if I could just write any random name, I just write 10 names every morning and just keep it moving. This forced me to be intentional. So now I'll just send a picture of I'll text a friend, hey, I sent my friend a picture of us having lunch in San Diego years ago. It's like, hey, love you. Can't wait to have lunch with you again sometime. Take care. So now I can add her name to the list that morning. Now, because I do that, I know that makes her happy. Like, she's going to see that picture. She's going to feel good about it. That makes me feel good. She's going to respond. That's going to make me feel good. And now I've been doing this for over 2 years, almost 2 years. Friends randomly text me that they love me. They don't even know why they're doing it. That's how contagious gratitude is. It's just rewiring your brain and rewiring the energy you put out. When I walk into a room smiling and I got good energy, do you know what people greet me with? Even if they're not at their best, they get it there. Everyone perks up because energy is contagious. Even if they don't notice it and they start to feel in a better mood. And then they're like, oh, when Cam comes around, everything's good. No, Cam's just smiling. It's just the energy you put out.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, having gratitude and being grateful, whatever your circumstance, I think is key. And one way of I think people do it. People that have traveled, obviously, you said you've boxed internationally, and you see how people live, in the lifestyle, and you truly like come back to the U.S. and you're indirectly grateful to begin with. A lot of people, I mean, yeah, U.S. has its problems, this, that, or the other, but I welcome anybody to travel and not travel to like tourist zones. Like you go in like you want to talk about a hood in the US, go to a hood somewhere else, like in, a favela in Brazil, or like, I'm from Eastern Europe, from Ukraine, where it's like
Okay.
one
Hey,
like
I love
Soviet
Recurrent. Been there
block
a couple
apartment.
times.
It's like 50. Yeah, 50,000 from Lviv, Ukraine. I was born there and then I immigrated here. And it's just like, you get a sense of, who you are and appreciate, what you've become and what you have kind of now as well.
Oh, yeah. It was, I've been to over 30 countries. Been to Kiev a couple times. I have an amazing story there. I went to fight in a tournament and I fought the guy from the hometown guy. I drew him the first day of this tournament. And like, y'all go hard because they came out with like drums and all this type of stuff. The crowd was going crazy for him. And I won. And I was so afraid because I won, clearly. I was so afraid like to be there because I dominated, and I just went to the bus. I left, and I was afraid to go to the tournament the next day because I thought the people from Ukraine was going to be mad at me. And I showed up the next day, and these people made signs and had flags and was there to support me. And because I beat their guy, they started to cheer for me throughout the rest of the tournament. And I had like thousands of people cheering for me as if I was like the hometown guy. And that was like a cool experience in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like boxing wise, there's a lot of heavyweights and good boxers coming out of Ukraine in general. But yeah, I mean, unfortunate what's going on now, but people are very welcoming and very kind of, positive and supportive. So,
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good people.
so what's one piece of advice? Obviously, we kind of went in depth in several topics, but what's one piece of advice if you can leave with the audience? What can you leave in terms of one piece of advice?
Uh, I would say take the time to cultivate your reality. So, perfect example, if you and I are sitting at a coffee table and a spider comes down, you're not afraid of spiders. I'm terrified of spiders. Spider comes down. We both see it at the same time. I scream. My heart starts pounding. I start shaking. I am in physical. I think I'm in danger. My body responds. I'm in danger. In my reality, I'm in danger. You're all right. You're kind of laughing at me a little bit. In your reality, you're okay. In objective reality, we're both going to be okay. But in my reality, it's real. So we can have two different realities sitting right next to each other. Doing things like practicing gratitude and looking for things to be grateful for and omitting certain things out of your life, because you control your timeline. I'm big on timeline control. I follow like 100 people on Instagram because I love more than 100 people, but there's not more than 100 people I can follow. Because if everyone has a bad day and I follow 3,000 people, everyone has a bad day a week, I'm seeing 3,000 bad days. So Instagram is $1 billion industry. Every fifth post is an ad. So they make billions of dollars off of 20% of your timeline. What value are you getting out of the other 80%? A lot of people talk about social media as negative. No, you follow negative pages. I follow dogs wearing people clothes. When I open up Instagram, I see a dog with a briefcase in his mouth. It's adorable. That's how I start my day sometimes. And there's some people you can't unfollow. We call those uncles and aunts. You can mute those people. Control your reality. If you're watching the news, if you watch the news and you haven't taken, this is a look in the mirror moment. If you're watching the news and you haven't taken action, physical action in the last 7 days from something you've learned from the news, then that is not information. That's entertainment. And if you're going to entertain yourself with something, let it be something a little more positive.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if another exercise I had when I was in college, they said watch the news and jot down all of the segments. How much of those is actually negative versus positive? And there's usually everything negative, like you said earlier, murder, crime, war, famine, so on and so forth. So how do you, how would you stay upbeat about life and your own circumstances and your own world if all you're getting bombarded with is, negative, what's the point if the world is this bad? What's the point of, being positive and, striving for greatness when, all this negativity is inevitable?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really appreciate you stopping by today and the conversation we had. Can you tell the audience how they can find you or anything else you have going on?
Yeah. So right now I'm on the Go Hard or Go Home tour, and I forgot my house key. So I am basically on the road. I'm just continuing to book days out. I'm working on booking out April. So I'm a keynote speaker. I speak at corporations. I speak on resilience and gratitude, about finding the silver lining in the clouds and how to keep on going. I've also been to over 30 countries as captain of the USA national boxing team, where I would learn the do's and don'ts about each country and then relay the message to my teammates so we don't make ourselves look like idiots. So I've learned a lot about culture in different countries. And so I speak about cultural communication in the workplace. And I also speak at high schools and middle schools and do stand-up comedy. So if you're looking for me, want to get in touch with me, you can find me at www.camawesome.com or at camfawesome on all social media.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.
Thanks, Rome.